Okay, hello everyone. Here again today. Just finished part two for What If Ichigo started training early, and now I'm gonna go ahead and hop on to What If part two of What If Grandpa Gohan didn't die. So last we left off, everyone was getting ready. Everyone had just finished their training to meet up at the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament. Uh, and I'm gonna go ahead and just jump right into the power levels. Before I do, everyone's training. So Krillin was training under Master Roshi. He arrived just about a few days earlier than in canon due to hearing about the fact that Roshi has been active in these past few years around Firepan Mountain. He ended up stopping, but he stopped visiting the place around 2 years ago. So he came to Kame House in the hopes that he would train him, so that he would be able to train him as a martial artist. Yamcha was picked up by Grandpa Gohan and taken back to Mount Paozu during their trip in the desert with Bulma and in looking for the Dragon Balls, whereas Goku and Chi Chi went back to Frypan Mountain with with Bulma to gather the rest of the Dragon Balls there. Um, During their few years of adventures before canon, uh, Goku and Chi Chi ended up discovering star orbs in different locations, near around the area of Frypan Mountain and Mount Paozu. They discovered Oolong early, took down his whole little regime there in the village, and found a star orb, which is what they called the Dragon Balls before they knew what they were called. They had already found one back at Grandpa Gohan's place, one with Roshi, and one in Frypan Mountain, so that would have made four. They had discovered one with the Pilaf gang, some wannabe upstart, self-proclaimed world king that Ox King heard about. And when they took his palace down, they found a star orb and added it to their collection, bringing them up to a total of five. And if I'm correct, Bulma already had one, which was six or seven-ish. Yeah, basically they were able to collect them. They were able to collect all the Dragon Balls much early, much early. Yeah, no, Bulma had two with her, so Goku and Chi-Chi had unintentionally collected five, whereas Bulma already had two. They only had to stop by Master Roshi's before heading out to Frypan Mountain. So they were able to make the wish a couple of days earlier, and they all decided to embark on their own training. Chi Chi decided to stay behind with her father at Frypan Mountain to train for the World Martial Arts Tournament. Gohan was training Yamcha, and Roshi was training Krillin. And since Gohan and Ox King are all Gohan, Ox King, and Roshi are still keeping contact with each other, since all of this. Sorry, that's my dog. He's been napping here. Since they've been more in contact with each other, they were all able to set up the weight training with the shells. And they also made their students aware of the fact that they would be competing with each other's students. So they're much more fired up to train. They're training at higher intensities. Um, this mainly benefits Yamcha, and halfway through the about 7 to 8 months that they had in preparation, maybe like 3 months in, Roshi, um, Roshi, Gohan, and Ox King decided to all meet up and have their pupils train with each other, so that they can make the most out of all this, and so that they would have a better sense of what it is they're going to be competing against. So they all trained together for another 3 months before going back to their individual training for about a month or two before the World Martial Arts Tournament. And I had mentioned that Chi Chi was about a power level of 35 before the training, which was about the same level of power as Yamcha was before the World Martial Arts Tournament. In canon, Goku was around a 42. I had him at around a 50 since like the very beginning, and this was Goku reaching a power level of 42 after all of his battles. But here, everything was a breeze. He took care of most of those battles pretty early, and everything else was a breeze. So he was a base power level of 50 before he decided to go to West City with Bulma so that he could ask her to help him out and advance his training. She was gifted his Saiyan armor so that she could make a weighted version of the Saiyan armor. He was gifted some weighted turtle shells that go up. I said 150 kilograms in the last episode. I don't know what I was thinking. Um, he was given a 50, just only the 50-kilogram shell to start with, and she asked um, if she could use this ship for any kind of training, and since he already needed to up his weight halfway through the training, she ended up coming with the idea of a gravity chamber. She made a more smaller, personalized one that he could use, and a larger platform so that he could use to train his grade 8 state. And if you don't think she could do it alone, especially since she has school during this time, that makes sense. It's a good thing that she has her father to help her out as well. I'm throwing him in there. Dr. Brees is definitely able to help this out and advance the technology so that he could get that training in real quick. If he was able to make a ship that had a gravity chamber that could go up to 100 times gravity in like the month or two, like the 2 or 3 months that it took Goku to heal in the hospital, he could definitely create a platform and a smaller gravity chamber that only goes up to times 10. Or, no, sorry, the smaller gravity chamber only goes up to times 5, and it goes up in increments like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. And the larger platform for his grade ape training that can go up to times 10. I don't think it would be too difficult. Uh, and yeah, like I said, he had a power level of 50 starting out. Krillin was the same, starting out at a power level of 32, and Yamcha was the same, starting out at a power level of 34. Now for the masters who were training these very powerful 32 in Krillin, 35 in Chi Chi, and 34 in Yamcha. Uh, so I would have put Roshi definitely stronger than his Jackie Chun of 90. He'd probably be at around let's go ahead and say a 120 in base. He decided to surpass his former pump up power of 120, so he would be 120 in base, and him and Gohan have been working on their pump up states so they can use it more effectively. So I made it so that it's a 1.6 times multiplier. So if he's 120 in base in his pump up technique, he would be at around what, 192. And I would have put Gohan at a 109. He's a little bit behind, not by much. He gets up to around a 175. I just rounded that up, even though it doesn't round up. He'd be around a 175 in his pump up state, and Ox King is strong enough to compete with him without needing it, so he'd be around a 176. And the fact that they have much stronger masters. Well, Yamcha actually has a master to train him, and they were training together for a course of 3 months before going back to their more individualized training. I would put Krillin at a power level. Let me see. He was around. Ooh, he was around a 68 in canon. So he jumped up from 32 to 68 over a 2 times increase. I would give him a solid 2.8 times increase. Higher intensity training. He had more training partners, even if it was for a shorter time, and a much stronger master. So, mm, yeah, yeah, I would put him at around. Well, I don't know. He wasn't too far off. He was around 68 in comparison to Jackie Chan at 90 and Goku as 86. He wasn't all too far off from their level of power. So, I'll put it. Let's see what he looks like as a solid 3 times. He would be what, 96 in terms of power level, stronger than Canon Goku, but he also has this unknown variable in Goku who's never met that his master and the other two masters were talking about, and that made mention of, that Chi Chi and Yamcha made mention of. So maybe he'd be training a little bit harder. Um, Even if he doesn't have Goku, the 3 months of training with Yamcha and Chi Chi definitely ironed out his personality flaws. They helped him open up a little bit without needing to be a little bit of a little douche. No pun intended. Yamcha would definitely be able to surpass his 57 power level. If we give him a similar times 3 increase, he'd be at a power level of 102. Maybe that's a little bit too much. Maybe, hmm. Well, okay, I'll just put Krillin at 92, Yamcha at 94. Yeah, each of them get a solid 15 increase in their power level. Chi-Chi, I will give a similar power up. Solid, or maybe not. She's much more aware of what Goku is capable of, and she'd definitely be pushing Ox King to make her a lot stronger. So, and he, like I said, he doesn't have a pump up technique, which means he doesn't have a weaker base. So he'd be at a higher power level all the time, constantly pushing her, and she'd be constantly pushing herself. Maybe she's gets the highest, a solid 100. Let's put her at a solid 100, which kind of makes her a threat to Grandpa Gohan. But skill is definitely going to be the deciding factor, and she's still young. So, but the masters in this timeline aren't going to be competing. Uh, I might just Jackie Chan doesn't really need a reason to participate. Maybe he'd be a little worried about Goku and like him getting a big head, but when Gohan told him about the fact that he went to West City to train of all places to have a friend help him out in his training, and how he wanted to see things from a different view with Bulma helping him. Maybe he's a little more confident, or yeah, now screw it. I'm gonna have all the masters participate. Ooh, that sucks for all the non for the for all the fodder. um, yeah, I'll set out the brackets right now. But Goku, starting off with a power level of 50, gets some gravity training. He is able to, in base, handle up to about a 1.5 times increase in gravity and move around normally. But if he throws on that 50 kilogram weight, the 50 kilogram turtle shell, it gets a lot more harder. He has to carry 75 kilograms on top of the fact that he himself weighs more. It's definitely difficult on himself, but he gets it so that he can move around decent. He has 8 months to get used to it, and yeah, 1.5 times increase in gravity. So not the worst thing. He got used to using his grade ape state more, transforming and learning how to de-transform himself while under the full moon. Uh, he and Bulma had actually looked at the date of the World Martial Arts Tournament, and maybe she doesn't point it out. Maybe Doctor Brief points out the fact that he may be at risk of transforming sometime during the tournament. But he ends up learning how to de-transform himself and sorry if I hit that. He learns how to keep himself from, or he learns how to de-transform himself and keep himself from transforming in the first place when under the full moon. So it won't be too much of a problem. It does mess with his head a little, like everything gets a little fuzzy around him. Uh, and he also picks up how to do a mouth blast while in base. It tires him out a little bit, about the same level as firing a Kamehameha, so not too much, but it'll be something to surprise his opponents if he needs to. And yeah, everyone's gonna be much stronger. Goku is able to get up. He was able to experience increase of similar a little bit over 2 times. He went from 42 to 86. So if we give him the same 3 times increase in power, he jumps up to 150 in base. I think I'm gonna go with that. I know I didn't give that 3 times increase in power to everyone else, but I'm gonna go ahead and give it to Goku, because Saiyan biology be hacks. So he jumps up to 150 in base, although he can't suppress himself to 100. He can suppress a third of his power level with the amount of experience that he has. So he has a 150 in base, but he keeps himself at around 100 most of the time. When it comes to a fight, and maybe he had like those drones similar to what Vegeta had that shoot the lasers at him. Maybe he had something similar to that, in his little gravity room. Uh, and yeah, so they all get ready for the World Martial Arts Tournament. While Goku has learned how to do the Mouth Blast, um, Chi Chi hasn't learned all that much new. She did adapt something from the Thundershock Surprise that she learned. She developed something she called the Electric Kamehameha, which is something Gohan actually uses in canon. I think he used it during the Buu Saga. Um, so it powers up her Kamehameha, and it has a bit of a shorter charge up period. It's shorter and it's more powerful, so it's much more useful. But it has the potential, like it harms her own hands a little bit whenever she fires it. Nothing too crazy, but it definitely backfires on her a little bit. Um, Yamcha learns how to utilize ki and thinking it's the coolest thing ever, takes under Gohan's tutelage, takes it as far as he can, and learns how to develops the Spirit Ball much earlier. Although it's obviously a much weaker variant, and it's not as fast as it is in canon. But he knows how to do. He has the Spirit Ball, and he does learn the Kamehameha under Roshi. Krillin himself learns how to do um, the Kamehameha, and even the Thundershock surprise after seeing Chi Chi pull it off. He decided to dedicate himself to learning it as well as the Kamehameha. And sadly, he doesn't really have the time to develop anything too cool for himself. Uh, but like I said, he is much more powerful. He is at a I had him jump. Sorry, I said 50 increase, a 60 increase. So he jumps up to 92. Yamcha jumps up to a 94, and Chi Chi is at a 95. With Goku being suppressed at 100, uh, Gohan, Grandpa Gohan's base power is 109. Jackie Chun's is, what did I say he was at? 120, and Ox King is around 175, maybe 174. Yeah, or yeah, he'll be like around. He'll be right in between them at like a 185. Okay. And as for the bracket, so I pulled it up here. It was supposed the battle one would have been Bacterian versus Krillin, but I'm gonna have that changed. It's gonna be Ox King versus Krillin. Oof. Jackie Chun is it's still gonna be Jackie Chun versus Yamcha, and instead of being Namu versus Ranfan, it's going to be Chi Chi versus Gohan. And then Goku is still gonna have the same, or no, I'm gonna have it be Chi Chi versus Namu, and Goku versus Gohan in Battle 4. So Battle 1, it's obvious it's gonna go to Ox King, but Krillin shows himself off to be very, very technique oriented. He makes up his small stature definitely allows him to get a few solid hits in. He surprises Ox King with the Thundershock surprise, and let's say in his panic to fire off a Kamehameha to get him to back off, he pulls off that what was it the Kamehameha that Goten used. It's shorter, not as powerful, and it's much quicker in terms of how fast you can pull it off. Doesn't need as much charge up time, and it's weaker as a result. But he's able to surprise him, and he doesn't beat him, but he does do some damage to him, and he gets some of Ox King's respect, and he gets Goku's respect as well. He had never seen this guy before, never even heard of him. He was kind of radio silent with everyone else when he was training in West City, and whenever he wasn't using like the gravity room, he was doing similar stuff to how Roshi would have had um, Krillin and Goku did in canon. He did like favors and stuff all around West City. He kind of became like a delivery errand boy for Capsule Corp. Like everyone in West City kind of knew about the monkey boy from Capsule Corp, who would like run around, do parkour, and occasionally take down criminals. Um, he would do so with his weighted turtle shell and his weighted Saiyan armor that he had Bulma made for him. Uh, and then Battle 2, Jackie Chun versus Yamcha. Oh yeah, Krillin. Like I said, Krillin loses. Jackie Chun versus Yamcha. Yamcha definitely shows off his own skill. Um, he's refined his Wolfang fist. He's much more swift with it. He can actually channel ki through it. So he's actually able to. He puts him a little bit on the back foot, not by much, but by a decent amount. He shows that he definitely has a lot of promise and skill in battle. And he ends up pulling out the spirit ball technique, which actually surprises Jackie Chun. It actually hits him once, but then he doesn't let it happen again. He's able to dodge around it, move in close, and use some acupuncture on Yamcha in order to take him down. Simply due to the fact that Yamcha was pretty swift, he was pretty fast with his movements, so he had to shut those movements down. So he came in close and was able to shut him down using acupuncture. Battle 3, Namu versus Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi takes this pretty handily. Namu does not stand a chance whatsoever. He had a power level of 70, so he does very well, but it's sadly just not enough. She's able to take him down with a thundershock punch, uh, or that's where she gets her opening, and is able to release a ki, that shockwave that they're able to release, and is able to send them flying out of the arena. Uh, I don't know. Maybe Goku, in in congratulating Chi Chi, hears about the guy lamenting, "Oh, I needed the money for like my village." I think that was his reasoning, and puts him in touch with Bulma. Nice little thing that Goku does. He's much more used to helping and interacting with people directly face to face after socializing in West City for a while, so he doesn't mind. And finally, Goku versus Grandpa Gohan. Oh, it's a spectacular fight, and he pushes Gohan to use his full power in his pump up technique, and Goku himself stops suppressing his power and lets out his full 150. And it can't completely cross it, but he is able to pull out a surprising amount of techniques. He was able to copy all the techniques that he saw. So he's able to pull out a spirit ball himself. He doesn't have as good control of it, but he is able to pull it out. Um, get him to trip up a little bit, but Gohan is very quick to simply slap it away into nothingness. Definitely hurts his hand. He has some singe marks on it. Definitely, it was no easy feat, but he's able to take it out. He's able to take it out of the equation. Goku comes in with a meteor combination and combining it with the thundershock surprise. Um, so he's able to land a whole bunch of electrifying hits on him super fast, but because of the concentration of keeping up the whole combination, the thundershock aspect isn't as powerful. It's still enough to his muscles are spasming a bit, but he's able to get control over his body once more. And they get back into a clash of pure martial arts. It's clear who has the advantage and technique and power in Grandpa Gohan, but Goku is showing off his creativity. He's mastered his tail almost completely. He's able to throw it into his fighting style and really throw Grandpa Gohan off of his game. And he mainly surprises him when he gets him into a bit of a hold. Um, Goku is able to release a mouth blast in combined with a ki, and not only hits him directly in the face. It doesn't take him out. It hits, but it does hit him directly in the face. He lowers its power, but it hits him directly in the face, and combined with the ki, is able to really stun him because of how loud it is. He literally has him bear holding basically, and when he ends up having to loosen his hold, keep his head over his ears, he feels like he's completely thrown out of balance, and Goku is able to charge a surprise technique, a grade 8 fist. Doesn't kill him, like I said. He's not going full with the intent to kill. But everyone who knows Goku, and even all the people in the stands, can swear they heard some kind of roar of a beast. And those who are aware of Ki can see some kind of mirage behind Goku as his hair flared up for a brief second and his eyes seemed to glow. And he sent a full power shockwave that sent Gohan flying out of the arena. Of course, Goku kind of freaks out a little bit. He thinks he might have really just hurt his grandpa, and he goes over to check on him. But he gets up, he's back into his base state, and he's so proud of him that he was able to beat him and pull out such great power, technique, creativity, ingenuity in battle. He's really grown, not just as a martial artist, but as a young man. and as his grandson, and he couldn't be prouder. This moves Goku to tears, and the entire audience is super happy to hear about it. Um, so they take the day off, and it's the next day, I believe. I think they move to the next day, right? Yeah. Oh no, it all happened in just one day. Okay, so they take some time to rest, and then they move on to the quarterfinals. So we have Ox King versus Jackie Chun. Although I don't think he'd need it. He doesn't really care for keeping himself anonymous since his other students aren't going to. Um, so it's just Master Roshi versus Ox King, Master versus student. Uh, and they have their battle. Roshi jumps into his pump up technique, and Goku can easily see that they're both even stronger than his grandpa was, and it completely shocks him. He's completely blown out of his mind. But he's not gonna let that stop him. He may or may not have experienced a minor Zenkai, but I'll jump into that in a minute. It wasn't too much of a tiring battle anyway. So yeah, Ox King's 180. I'll just put on 186 um, versus Roshi's 192. The nature of the pump up technique, he's been able to master it so that he doesn't sacrifice any of his agility or speed. And Ox King himself is just used to his big size. And he's able to make the most out of it. And they have a titanic battle. It's a clash of the titans. It's sending shockwaves throughout the entirety of the arena, throughout the stadium. Everyone can feel it. They're throwing punch after punch against each other, but Roshi's pure refined technique over the course of centuries is able to win out against Ox King's brutal yet extremely frighteningly efficient fighting style. Um, Ox King surprises the entire stadium when he actually coats his fists in flames, with key-based flames. He decided to pick it up after seeing his daughter incorporate the Thundershock Surprise so heavily into her own fighting style that he decided he'd live up to his title as the Ox King of Fry Pan Mountain, and he learned how to coat his own flames and punches with key-based flames. And it does give him a bit of an edge in the battle, but Roshi is able to extinguish these flames with a shockwave from the palm of his own hand, and they decide to finish this off with a Kamehameha beam struggle. Sadly, depending on how you look at it, Ox King is pushed out of the arena and taken down. But he once again he bows in respect to his master, and he loses gracefully. And it has the entirety of the crowd in an uproar. Everyone is cheering, and the students are in complete awe. Chi Chi is looking at her father with complete starstruck eyes. Yamcha is almost frightened that this is the rival to his master, and yet is also in complete awe that a man could show such strength and yet such humility in the face of loss. And Krillin himself is completely terrified that he somehow managed to survive fighting against that, and yet also kind of proud and curious as to what he can do to surpass that level of power. And next up we have is Goku versus Chi Chi, and this is a very back and forth battle. Goku is obviously holding back. He suppresses himself back to his power level of 100, and is sparring against Chi Chi's power level of around 95. And they're going back and forth. They're trading punches. They're so very very even in this at this state. Um, and she's pulling out her. They're both pulling out their electrified enhanced punches and kicks. They're sending sparks flying against each other. Goku's have become more of a dark red, while hers have become more of a vibrant pinkish color. And they're pink and red. They're clashing against each other, creating an absolute storm of electricity across the stadium, across the battleground. And they're sending electrified shockwaves through the air, and they end it with their own beam struggle. Chi Chi charges up her own electric Kamehameha, whereas Goku charges up his own full power Kamehameha. Um, Normally the Kamehamehas increase their power level by around 50 to 60%. So Goku ends up reaching his normal max of around 150, maybe like 154, and Chi-Chi herself jumps up to like maybe a 148, something like that in terms of power. But and the electric nature of her Kamehameha is able to give her a bit of an edge, but eventually the it starts cramping up her hands. The electricity is really messing with her muscles, and it's throwing off her focus. And she eventually can't hold it, and she loses the beam struggle, and she's taken out. Man, I'm having these end and beam struggles. I'm already having them jump into DBZ territory. But she loses, but she takes pride in the fact that she was able to push him so hard. His power level nearly matched the power that he showcased against Grandpa Gohan. And while she knows that he could obviously pull out even more if he was actually at full power, she's proud she could push him so far. She's proud in her own strength, and she wonders if she can learn some of that flame stuff from her father. And like what other things she can learn to bridge the gap between herself and Goku. And finally, they take another break, and it's finally time for Son Goku versus Muta and Roshi, the finals of the 21st Martial Arts Tournament. And it is going to be a very intense battle. Goku has had time to recover from fighting against two of the greatest fights of his life, and he's a little bit higher in power level, not by much, maybe a 109 to match his grandpa. And at full power, again, not by too much. If he was suppressing 33% of his power level before 109 times 1.33, give him a. He's about a 145. Or no, that's wrong. Sorry. Hold on. Okay, if 109 is 66% ish, 100 divided by 66 times 109. He's around a 165 in his max power. Sadly, still not completely enough to bridge the gap between Roshi's 192. And he goes full power from the start, which encourages Roshi to do the same. And their clash, if you thought it was a clash of the titans between Roshi and Ox King, this is a completely different monster. It's this young force of nature that still has yet to completely realize itself versus this old standing force that has existed for centuries at this point. It's knowledge versus instinct, experience versus power, technique versus strength. Not to say that Goku's lacking in technique, he's bringing out a surprising amount of abilities. He's keeping himself from falling out of the ring by floating with his ki, which again kind of somewhat miss Roshi. Um, but he even enhances his own tail with ki in order to land a big slap on Roshi's face whenever he gets a little too close. He pulls out uh, he pulls out a new technique that he kind of developed. He calls it his Dragon Combo. And if you've seen the Super Dragon Fist from Xenoverse 2, the super move where he hits like that three hit combo that launches people into the air, he does like I think it's like a punch, a kick, and then a final punch. He goes like a punch, and then he swings around with a kick from his left leg, and then he ends it with like an uppercut punch. Surprises Roshi, kind of knocks his head loose a little, but not enough to take him out of the fight. And Goku knows this, so he decides to really put in his all. With he pulls out a Ki Eye in order to get Roshi to stumble back. Pulls off a few after images to keep him on his toes, and he pulls out an electrified spirit ball. He's able to launch it at Roshi, keep him at bay for a few seconds as he prepares his own electric Kamehameha. Although instead of drawing on the electricity within him, he draws upon the power of the Great Ape. The the moon is in the sky. The full moon is in the sky, and he's keeping himself from transforming, but he draws a little bit on that power that's resting inside of him, that's waiting to burst. And similarly to that Great Ape punch he pulled, behind him, like right next to him, as he cups his hands together in this kind of state, As he's launching his Super Kamehameha, his hands almost look like the opening maw of a great ape firing a beam from its mouth as he launches his Super Kamehameha at Roshi, who responds with his own full power Kamehameha. And they end up being clashing, but eventually Goku's own Great Ape power wears out. He can't keep it completely under control. He has to either completely let it out or completely rein it in, and he goes with option two. He doesn't want to completely rely on overwhelming power to best him. He knows he doesn't have it. He feels that if he can't pull it out completely as he is in this battle, if he has to rely on completely transforming, he wouldn't really consider it a win. So he lets go of the power and cancels out the beam struggle and decides to engage Roshi in a final martial arts confrontation, which he eventually loses. Similarly to in canon, they aim their kicks at each other, but Roshi is able to send Goku flying out due to the difference in height. And Mushin Roshi is the winner of the World Martial Arts Tournament. Goku taking second place, and yeah, and that's it for the martial arts tournament. They have their food together. You know, they're really enjoying their time. And the next day, after they've taken their time to rest, Goku is kind of a little bit bummed. He wants to go on another adventure. He wants to gain more strength. The World Martial Arts Tournament and all the training leading up to it really had his blood pumping. He was excited the entire time. There was never really a dull moment. He was always really happy. And he decides he kind of wants to go on another adventure, similar to the ones he had with Chi Chi. Oh, sorry about that. Um, and when that thought strikes him, he ends up asking Chi Chi if she wants to come along with him in his journeys to get stronger. And she surprisingly declines. She was talking to Master Roshi. She's going to be training a little bit more with her father, and learn so that she can learn how to pull off that flame key technique that he pulled off. But she talked to Master Roshi where she could learn about diversifying her techniques and key usage and like doing some more creative things with her key. And he brought up ah, he brought up that maybe she could talk to his sister. She used magic in comparison to him focusing on martial arts and ki. His sister ended up using magic. So if she really wanted to diversify herself and diversify her abilities and branch out in what she could do, she could probably go to her eventually, whenever she felt comfortable. She felt it wouldn't take her too long, maybe like a week or so, to learn the technique from her father, since she's already had experience with like transforming her ki. And Goku has no hard feelings. He understands that she wants to take her own path and go on her own journey. He's a little bummed, but it's not going to really disappoint him all too much. And he asks her to get in contact with him one day when she's finished with her training, so that they can have a spar and compare how they've grown against each other. And she agrees. So yeah, Chi-Chi's going to be training with her father for a little bit before heading to fortune teller Baba's place. And Goku decides he's gonna set out and find the Dragon Balls again. He kind of has a few questions on his mind that he's been building up, that he's been coming up with for a while. So he's gonna be going out to search of the Dragon Balls again. And now I think it's time we talk about the Red Ribbon Army. So what have they been doing? And did I forget about launch the same way Toriyama did? No, I did not. Um, so shortly after the Pilaf gang talked to shortly after the Pilaf gang was taken out much earlier in canon, they actually tried going to the Red Ribbon Army to make a bit of an alliance. But since they were taken out and were basically robbed by Ox King and his kingdom, they didn't really have much to offer other than telling them about the Dragon Balls. Sadly, Ox King had already collected a whole bunch of the Dragon Balls, and the only two other Dragon Balls seemed to be located with somewhere in West City, which, you know, as powerful as they weren't powerful enough yet to make war against the world government by invading one of the more popular cities, especially where the Capsule Corp was. They didn't want to step on any toes, so they lied in wait. And after the wish was made by Goku to learn about the Saiyans, um, didn't really have much. They were able to lie in wait and they put their feelers out, and they were able to recruit someone of surprising notoriety. They recruited Launch. Roshi was kind of willing to take in a student. He was kind of curious, so he didn't have to ask. He didn't feel the need to ask Krillin to go find him a pretty girl. So Launch was kind of left to do her own thing, and because of that, Blonde Launch specifically was recruited by the Red Ribbon Army. And considering the oddballs that are in the Red Ribbon Army, it's not that weird that she got recruited. She wouldn't be that out of place. But it's definitely a place for Blonde Launch to thrive in, and Blue Launch to more try to hide herself in the background by letting Blonde Launch take the reins. Uh, but yeah, and the now they are setting out. The Red Ribbon Army have obtained the 6 and 5 star Dragon Ball, and Goku ends up heading over. Goku ends up on his travels, takes down Colonel Silver, ends up in Jingle Village, and takes down the White Core and Muscle Tower. And it is a breeze with how much stronger he is. With how much stronger he is, I put him a what, like a 152 or whatever, or a 156, something like that. Or no, sorry, a 174 ish. He's like 174. He's able to take them down much easier. Cause in canon, I'm looking at all this. He was like what was his power level? I have it down here as he's growing older. Sorry, this is taking me a bit. Let me see. He ended up like around a 140. I don't even know. Okay, he ended up jumping up to 180 by the time of the 22nd martial arts tournament. So yeah, he's definitely much stronger. He's already on his way to getting much stronger. He's able to take down Muscle Tower. He befriends Ader, much in the same way that he does in canon. He's able to keep his friend alive. I don't know if he actually died like in the movie. I don't know much about that movie, but and he is stomping the Red Ribbon Army with much more ease. Um, how like I said, he has the Bancho fan, so he's able to like deflect missiles and fly and like all that kind of stuff, like ballistics and stuff, using the Bancho fan, sending them all right back at them instead of just having to dodge them. Bulma ends up with all the tinkering that she's been doing. She's already it says here that she has to repair Goku's broken Dragon Radar. So yeah, she's able to repair that for him. Lickety split, super easy. And when Goku comes across General Blue, it is a much easier fight. Hell, with Goku's knack for deciding to take things from a different angle, him wanting to diversify his techniques, he ends up picking up on his psychic abilities. As we all know, he's able to. He has his own level of psychic capabilities. So he's able to pick up on his telekinesis and stuff, and maybe might develop that a bit further down the line. But either way, he's able to take him down, gets to Penguin Village, and instead, Goku just has some fun with Arale. That whole thing happens. Um, Mercenary Tao ends up, still kills General Boo for his much more humiliating failure against a Turtle School student. And then instead of beating Goku, let me take a look at General Tao's power level. But I'm pretty sure his technique might help him out. But he is going to be taken down by this much stronger. Ooh, hold on. Oh wait, that's for the Tree of Might. That's stupid then. What is General Tao's power level? Okay, Cyborg Tao had like a power level of 200 something. Why isn't it giving me just base General Tao? Okay, Red Ribbon Army Saga. Tao Pai Pai had a power level of 110, but Goku was stronger than him with a power level of 150 or 125. Oh no, he got 125 after training with Korn or Karn, whatever you want to call him. Okay, so he had a power level of 110. Goku suppressing himself doesn't take the fight too seriously, so maybe he does get a bit of an edge, but all Goku has to do is power up and he can take him down. It wouldn't be too difficult, but when he hears about about Korin's tower and the fact that he can strengthen himself, like I said, he's not really riding on a he's confident in himself, but he's not really riding on any kind of confidence high like you'll see in other stories. He's more centered. He's able to take. He wants to learn more. He's seeking to diversify himself. He's seeking to really learn from other people. So he ends up climbing up Korin's tower, and he trains with him. It says here Korin has a power level of 135, so he definitely respects him. He's not going to see him as someone just below him. He knows for a fact that power level isn't everything from what he can sense. He knows that there's always technique. And he noticed that despite the fact that he should have the speed advantage, Korin seems to be able to completely avoid him whenever he tries to get to him. Goku, despite being a much more skilled martial artist, is still his kind of like a very eager self. He's calmer, but he's not calm enough in terms of his mindset when it comes to battle. He's still as eager as he always will be. So Goku, he ends up helping him refine his ki control even further than before. It won't take him as long, obviously, and while he learns about the fact that it's not the true Ultra Divine Water, he doesn't really mind, and he does come out a bit stronger. He jumps from 89 to 125. His power level increased by over 35. He's stronger, but he also gets it done quicker. So I'll just add on that 35. So he's about a 205 in terms of power level right now. I'll give him the same just flat increase because he's stronger, but not by no, that's a lie. He's stronger by a completely drastic amount, and maybe his power, maybe him learning how to use telekinetic abilities requires him to refine his ki control, which he's definitely practicing all these techniques that he's learned. He wants to make sure that they're not getting rusty. He wants to be as strong as he can. One day he seeks to venture out into space to find his brother. He wants to be strong. He needs to be strong. But there's still only so much he can do. But this training really helps him. Maybe he even divines, okay, he'll develop his psychic powers under Korin a little bit. Because Korin seems to have like this ability to really get a much stronger read on someone's power level. Far beyond that with what normal people can do. I mean, Goku went straight to him and asked him if he was strong enough to take down Cell. Powered up to halfway, and he was like, "Is that enough to beat Cell?" And Korin was like, "I don't think it is." And Goku completely trusted his judgment. So maybe he really helps him refine his sensory capabilities and his, psychic abilities and stuff, and all of his ki control. So I'll put him, if he was like at a 170, maybe he grew to like about 180 over the course of his little adventures against the Red Ribbon Army. He'll jump to a 35 power increase, maybe a little less. So he's in the range of like 205 to 215. That's his range of power at absolute max. He's not always fighting at max, but that's his absolute max. Yeah. Okay, 3 days of training, not bad. He's able to do all this in about three days of training. He ends up storming the entire Red Ribbon Army base and meets up at Fortune Teller Baba's place. Over the course of these last couple of days, Chi-Chi had only just arrived at Fortune Teller Baba's place herself, and her to cover her training with Urnai Baba, she was able to get paid from Ox King. She was paid from Ox King some of his treasure. I think he could easily cover it. He could cover feeding Goku and covering all of his living expenses when he got married to Chi-Chi. So I think he could take care of this pretty easily, especially since he took all of Pilaf's wealth and stuff. So he could definitely dip his pockets a little. And Goku arrives. Maybe he stopped by Kame Place to ask about it, or maybe he stopped by Fry Pan Mountain after taking down the Red Ribbon Army to ask about it, to ask about Chi Chi and her training. And he stops by. They have a bit of a spar. Um, and he'll actually be stopping by regularly over the course of the 3 years. But he does begin his training to run around the world. He gets it done pretty quicker, but he does take care of things like he fights Plague and Terror, meets Master Chin, and fights the Sky Dragon in the Master of Martial Arts contest. Okay. Enters the Demon World, fights Shula, saves Ino Shikacho, and meets Tien Shinhan for the first time. Um, to make one thing very clear, Goku did not like Tao. Not even a little bit. He's much more aware of what he was doing. He did not like him. He completely annihilated him. There's not gonna be any Cyborg Tao. And because of that, because of that, Shen started training them much more intensely, and he trained them in all the techniques that Tao knew. Or maybe no, I'm gonna just have him be dead. Um, but yeah, Shen ended up ramping up the training for Tian and Chaozu in response to his brother's legitimate death. Uh, and especially in hearing how these turtle students and the entire turtle school has been making a return on the big scene, on the martial arts scene, with how Roshi himself won in first place for the martial arts tournament. It was bound to happen eventually. But yeah, during the 3 years of his training, Goku stopped by. He stopped by to spar with Chi Chi, um, and Krillin and Yamcha actually swapped training masters. Yamcha decided to train under Roshi, whereas to just learn more, to refine more his martial arts skills, whereas Krillin decided to train under Grandpa Gohan to refine his ki control. And they only did this for about a year and a half before each deciding to meet up with Ox King to train for the final year and a half. And Chi Chi has just been training under Fortune Teller Baba. She's been training with the undead warriors that she's been bringing for her, and she's been learning magic so that she can diversify her abilities. She's been learning how to use the elements in her fighting style and use it with ki. And eventually they all meet up at Papaya Island for the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament to take place. And oh, I said I was gonna pull off a Toriyama. I pulled off a Toriyama. Launch. I'm gonna just say that Launch ended up having to go into mercenary work after the Red Ribbon Army was taken down, and ended up meeting with the Crane School. So she kind of works with them in place of Tao to bring in money for them. And because of this, she meets Tien and Chiaotzu earlier. And beyond that, they end up meeting Blue Launch. So while they don't completely get along with Blonde Launch, her personality is something that Shen can work with. But whenever she's Blue Launch, she sticks to Tien and Chiaotzu. Specifically Chiaotzu, Tien is kind of still being his stoic wannabe assassin. Martial arts is for killing, blah 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 blah. But she's able to get him to soften up, so he's going to be a little bit more open going into it. But he's also receiving much harsher training because of it as punishment. Whenever Shen catches them lighting up around each other, he almost tries to punish Blue Launch, but Chiaotzu and Tien aren't going to let that happen. So they instead decide to further intensify their training and take the brunt of Shen's frustrations in order to keep Blue Launch safe. I'm gonna go ahead and just jump directly into power levels. During the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, we have Krillin being at around a 140 in his base. Jackie Chan was around the same level, with Yamcha being around a 135. Goku was a 180, and Tien matched him at the same level of power. Master Shin was at a 120, and Chaozu was at a 130. We're also going to be replacing Man Wolf with Chi Chi. We're not going to have Jackie Chun. Or, actually, I think I'll just replace Jackie Chun with Chi Chi instead. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. We're gonna replace Jackie Chun with Chi Chi. But otherwise, the roster stays just about the same. We have Pampa, Man-Wolf, all that stuff. King Choppa is decently powerful, but let's go ahead and get into power levels. So, because of the training being ramped up on the two of them, let's say Master Shen is around 135, especially after seeing Roshi in his intense training, or we'll just put him at 145. And Tien himself is around a 215, with Chaozu being at a 180, being at the 180 that Goku and Tien were in canon. Um, Krillin is at a 195, tied with Yamcha. The two of them have tied at around a 195. Chi Chi is tied with Tien's 215, and Goku is the highest out of all of them. He is at 215 when suppressed to the same 2/3 of his power level. So we're gonna do some math again. 215, or so 100 divided by 66, and then multiply that by 215. He is around a 325 at maximum power. If he wanted to, he could probably shrug off like a Dodon puff from Tien. Yeah, he could shrug off like a Kamehameha. Or no, he can't. No, because Krillin at 140 jumped to 310 with a Kamehameha. Yeah, no, he definitely wouldn't be able to shrug that off. But he is much stronger, and he's been training to bring out more of that grade 8 power. That's what he's been specifically been training for. Whenever he stopped by Urnai Baba's place, let's say he got some, I don't know, some royalties or some money from the advancements that from the inventions that the British were able to make with his Saiyan technology, like with his gravity room and stuff. Maybe he brought himself his own personal gravity room to train in. Got used to more like the 2.5 times gravity. Go away, fart. That's my sister's cat. Um, yeah, so Goku's around 215 in suppressed, 325 at full power. So much stronger. And he's occasionally trained with Oranai Baba and Chi Chi. Learned a few mystic abilities himself, but mainly just around psychic abilities and using elements like fire and lightning. Maybe he powered up his Kinto and his flying Nimbus so that it could fire lightning bolts. Some God of High School type stuff. Enhanced his Power Pole and Bancho Fan and their magical abilities. But but in terms of like martial arts abilities, he's developed his psychic ability so that he can use it to better his ki control. So he can use the spirit ball much more effectively. He's learned like that bending Kamehameha. Um, he can fire like homing in ki blasts, and yeah, that's basically what he's gonna have access to. And he can willingly transform and detransform into and out of the grade ape state without needing the full moon. It's a little difficult, and similarly to the Powerball technique, he has to sacrifice a bit of his own power to get the process started, but he's able to do it internally. He doesn't have to throw it up. So he's able to do it kind of internally. It sacrifices some of his power, so he's not going to be always at full power, but this is going to put him completely above everyone else if he absolutely needs it, which he will, because a very specific Demon King has been released by the very desperate Pilaf King. And he has heard of these martial artists making waves. He has sensed that one in particular extremely high power level, and he has commanded his sons to gain as much power as possible so that they can be ready to take on these martial artists. His sons have been training with each other. But yeah, we are going to get into the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament. I'm gonna go ahead and set up the brackets real quick. I'm gonna set up the brackets. Let me see. What were the canon brackets? It's all gonna be the same, just that Chi Chi replaces Chi-Chi's gonna be the one who replaces. Hmm. Wait, what? Hmm. Okay. 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 I think I got it. Okay. So the canon brackets were Tien and Yamcha, um, Jackie Chun and Wolfman, Krillin and versus Chaozu, and Son Goku versus Pampa. Yeah, I think so. I believe that is it. So, obviously going to be a little bit different. It's going to be Chi Chi versus Manwolf, whatever you want to call him. Uh, and everyone's much much stronger, but there is still a power difference between Tien and Yamcha, and the power difference between Krillin and Chaozu is actually just about the same. Goku is going to absolutely stomp Pampa, and then we get into the. I can go for like another 10 minutes cover these battles. Um, yeah. So Tien is going to beat Yamcha, but Yamcha is going to put up one hell of a fight. Oh, it's going to be absolutely amazing. He's practically mastered his spirit ball technique to the point that he can have two of them out at the same time and guide them with only one hand. He's been really practicing drilling himself in his key control, and he even catches him off guard when he sends out a flaming wolfing fist. But sadly, Tien is able to pull out his forearm witch's technique to help him deal with the wolfing fist, and is able to use the solar flare to break Yamcha's concentration in order to get him to back off. I don't know if he learned these techniques by the time of the Second World March. I know he had the forearm witch's technique, but I don't know if he had the solar flare just yet. But he's able to do that, and he gets ready to charge up a Dodonpa, but Yamcha's own key sensing ability is much greater than before. So he's actually able to dodge it on instinct. He's able to dodge it on instinct and gets ready to charge up his own Kamehameha. And in response, um, Tien decides to go, a little overkill. Sorry about that. He goes a little overkill with his Kikoho, but he never gets the chance to break his arm. While he is much more ruthless when it comes to battle, like when it comes to just pure martial arts, he's striking faster, striking harder, going for more vital points. Um, he isn't at the point where he's going to break the opponent's arm because of Blue Launch's influence. And Blue Launch is going to be in the stands, and they do like the peanut gallery ends up meeting her. Um, the peanut gallery. Yeah. Roshi and Master Shen are trading barbs in the stands and stuff, with Gohan and Ox King backing him up. Uh, but yeah, Tien doesn't break his arm, but he is just a little bit colder and more closed off in his demeanor. Although he does get into a bit of the heat of the battle when Yamcha, pun intended, pulls out the flaming wolfing fist. He does have a little bit of fun, but he quickly slips back into his cold persona after he beats him with the Kakoho in their clash. Uh, so after that would be this time Chi Chi versus Manwolf, and Manwolf has a very pathetic power level of 7. Chi Chi utterly stomps, just kicks him out of the arena, or maybe she just uses her psychic magic abilities, just whoomp. And Chester's a little surprised, didn't expect to see someone else with psychic abilities at all. Um, but yeah, taking care of that, we get into Krillin versus Chaozu, and this is a very interesting battle. Um, Chaozu knows that he can't. He knows for a fact that these turtle students may have their own psychic abilities. So he plays a little close with his. He plays his cards a little closer to his chest. But when he notices that Krillin doesn't have the ability to fly or um, any other kind of psychic abilities at all, he lets himself get a little more confident, fires off with the Donpa, which Krillin counters with his own with his own powered ki blast. Not named, just he just shoots out some ki in a similar manner, is able to deflect it, but he quickly has to dodge because of the fact that it's more than a simple ki blast. The Dodonpa jumped up cannon Chaozu from 130 to 235, so he definitely clears Krillin's power, and they end up having some decent martial arts. Krillin is able to keep himself suspended in the air by constantly throwing out his kicks and stuff. And he's able to maneuver himself around the battlefield. He can repeatedly break out of Chiatsu's psychic hold. It trips him up the first few times, but he's able to get used to it and is able to flex his ki around himself. He himself has been studying the pump up technique. Him and Yamcha have been studying the pump up technique used by Roshi and Gohan, and they haven't. They're not close to mastering it. They don't even think they can do it, but they're definitely learned about the principles of it. So and he's able to use some ki eyes to flex it off, and is eventually able to get him down with instead of similar to instead of forming the Kianzan. I'm not gonna give him that early. It's much too deadly. He's able to form more dull discs. He doesn't have the power or the ki control to form them super sharp. They're basically more like literal frisbees. They're gonna hit you and they're gonna hit you hard. And it's gonna hurt a lot. He's able to throw them out at rapid speed, and he adds the lightning element to it from the Thundershock surprise. So it's able to take Yamcha. It's able to take Chiatsu out of the air. They engage in some martial arts, and Chiatsu tries to charge up another full power Dodonpa, which Krillin takes care of with his own Kamehameha. And just like that, Krillin is the winner of this battle. Next, we have Son Goku versus Poundput. Again, super easy for him to take him out. And let's see. So next would be Tien versus Chi Chi. Now, they are the ones who are equal in power level with each powers of 215. But while you would think Chi Chi would have the edge in terms of her magic abilities, Tien is used to having to fight people with unorthodox abilities. He's used to fighting against Chaozu's psychic-based abilities, so he's able to adapt to things like her own flame. I'm gonna just come up with a random ass name. What should I call it? The Rising Vermilion Phoenix Strike. It's gonna be similar to the Super Dragon Strike that I gave to Goku. She uses her ki in order to launch a combo that ends with a high kick. Ends with like that high kick where you raise your leg super high into the air. She like spins around, is constantly hitting you. It's almost similar to like what you would see the Hyugas use with their gentle fist. She's like spinning around, sending in precision strikes, using like talon flames around her hands. That's cool. She's able to strike at him, land a couple of really powerful blows that actually knock the wind out of him, and they're obviously burning him as well, before landing a really high kick straight into his chin that kind of sends him into the air. But of course he's able to use his flight technique, but this is where she surprises everyone. She had picked up Goku's own flight technique and is able to meet him in the air, and they engage in combat. He pulls out the forearms witch's technique once more, and actually, yeah, I'll work on that later. He pulls out the forearm witch's technique once more and is able to keep up with her blinding speed, which she is now using her own the once more she's using the electricity, which is more enhanced by her magic. She's able to strike with blindingly fast blows that he normally wouldn't be able to keep up with, but he's able to enhance his ki into his third eye in order to keep up with, and he's using the forearm witches to really block all of her blows, and they end up separating after exchanging for a few minutes in hand-to-hand combat, and he once more charges up a super Kikoho using the forearm witch's technique. He has them like this. So he has his top set of hands like this and his bottom set of hands like this. It looks stupid, I know. Whatever. He uses all four of his arms in order to charge the super Kikoho. where she uses a super electric Kamehameha, and they end up clashing against one another. But at this point, Chi Chi has overcome her um, the damage that is done to her from her electric Kamehameha, but only for the normal electric Kamehameha, not for a super electric Kamehameha. And like I said, Goku ended up introducing the super Kamehameha much earlier. He introduced it in the last battle, in the last martial arts tournament. So it's much more superpowered, but because of that, the electricity is arcing out much more wildly. And that's something she still hasn't completely perfected. She's perfected the normal one, but not this one. And because of this, and the fact that Tien is an absolute beast of a human being, he is able to actually win. But it is close. She only falters because of the fact that she has to deal with the fact that if she had probably used her lightning abilities from the beginning, his body would not be in the right. Sorry, my dog is being annoying. No, go down. Go go go. His body wouldn't be in the condition that it is, which is only barely better than hers. She dealt a lot of damage to herself. You know what? No, screw it. Screw following canon. Tien loses. No, I don't know why I'm doing that to Chi Chi. She wins. Yeah, Chi Chi is able to win. The combined burns from her vermilion bird from her rising vermilion bird strike and her electric meteor combination that she learned from Goku. She was able to take him down. He stressed his body a little bit too much, and now Shen is pissed. But because of Blue Launch's earlier influence, and the fact that he gets a talking to from both Yamcha, who he came to really respect and who he did not break his arm or leg or whatever it was, and Chi Chi as well, who is definitely not going to be taking any insults to her school or any kind of wannabe cool guy, cold assassin attitude. She goads him into talking throughout the battle and gets him to open up. And when Shen comes up to confront him, the Turtle School masters stand by him. Well, first it's Yamcha and Krillin who stand by him. Because initially it's just Chaozu. Chaozu and Tien, they meet up. They're lamenting their loss. Blonde Lunch, of all people, comes by and comforts them. She's developed a pretty good relationship with them as well, despite her brazen attitude. Um, Maybe Bulma tagged along, and because of this, Roshi and the other Turtle School masters saw that Shen was following and was going to completely berate them. And when Bulma and Launch try to step in, he's ready to attack them. But Roshi and the Turtle Masters step up, as do the other Turtle School students. And Tien is basically moved by this. But because of this, we are going to have a very different final battle. Chi Chi has won her battle against Tien Shinhan, is going on to the finals. Now it's going to be Krillin versus Goku. And their battle is going to be very, very interesting. They're not as close, but their first battle allowed them to bond by a decent amount. And they did exchange some words. They definitely became some decent friends during the after dinner from the 21st martial arts tournament. And Goku has a good impression of him. He's seen his abilities and he's very impressed with him that he's managed to refine himself so much, despite the fact that he's still training with the same masters that Goku had moved. I don't want to say moved on from, but had stopped training with. That there was still so much to learn, and that he could progress so far. He's genuinely impressed with him, and he's proud to be a fellow practitioner of the Turtle School. So they end up having a very respectful battle. Of course, Goku wins. Goku obviously wins. This is Goku, but it's a decently close battle in terms of martial arts skill. Training constantly with all these people, whereas Goku has been a little bit more focused on power and diversifying the abilities he can use. In terms of pure martial arts skill, Krillin nearly matches Goku. Nearly. It's a very close thing. It's obvious who has the edge, who has more refined instincts and battle and like just pure battle experience. But it's a close thing. And Goku's extremely impressed. He ends up winning in and a now what seems to be commonplace beam struggle between the two of them in their Kamehamehas. But Goku has not need to express his full power. His power, as of right now, seems to be matched by Tien and Chi-Chi. But he's about to prove that all wrong. It's the finals. Chi-Chi and Goku meet against each other. They have come to have one more battle and truly see who is the superior between them. It seems they're even, but Chi-Chi calls him out directly to his face. She knows for a fact that he's holding back. So he tells her that the longer the battle goes on, he promises the more he will unleash of his power. The longer she can last, the more she'll see the gap between them, and the more she'll see how much she needs to improve, so that they can have the fight of their lives. Which he is definitely counting on. As of right now, out of everyone he's ever met, he's counting on Chi-Chi to give him the fight of his life when it comes to Earth before he leaves for space. Eventually. He has plans to, but he doesn't have a direct timeline set. But it's something he's mentioned to Chi-Chi a few times, and even Bulma. One day he is going to leave Earth to find his brother, to find the rest of the Saiyans, and to possibly put down Frieza. He's not entirely sure how he feels about it, but one day he's going to leave Earth. And if anyone's going to give him the fight of the life, he wants it to be Chi-Chi. And so they engage in battle. They're trading blows. They start off in basic martial arts. They're not even moving at high speeds. It seems like a normal battle between martial artists, but very quickly they amp up their speed. They're using after images, ghosting each other, baiting each other, trying to land faint strikes. They start using their elemental abilities, but it's clear Chi-Chi has. This is where Chi-Chi has the edge, as she brings out the fact that she actually has more than just lightning and fire. She brings out water to increase the concussive impact of her blows. Maybe she kicks up some. Maybe she's able to do some earth bending with her kicks, able to lift the tiles off of the ground, and even bring patches of earth from outside of the ring to launch directly at Goku, which is able to keep him on his toes when she combines her own usage of the Spirit Ball technique, and is actually able to create a smaller swarm of them. She calls it she doesn't really have a name for it. I don't know. Just yeah, doesn't really have a name for it, but especially they're basically smaller, maybe around the size of like a golf ball, and she's sending they're moving more in swarms from general directions, pelting him, and they're all some of them are charged with different elements, some of them are charged with electricity or fire, some of them are just pebbles that she left telekinetically and enhanced with ki, some of them are pure ki blasts, and they're all keeping him on his tail until he releases a ki that completely disperses everything. And Goku decides he's gonna take this a bit more seriously. He powers up a little bit. Electricity briefly dances around him, as do flames, and he gets ready to face her. And they once more engage in a more elemental kind of battle of martial arts, kind of like a what you would imagine a fight would be between two avatars, if you wanted to think about it. Goku's style is much more direct, whereas Chi-Chi's is much more finesse. She's using more control. She's creating whips of water from seemingly just the air. Is letting out blades of wind with the chops of her hands, whereas Goku is letting out powerful shockwaves with just the show of his palms. Is backhanding away flames and is blowing them out from his mouth. And you very much see that one of them is a refined beast, a beast that has learned the ways of man and has developed technique to match them in terms of technique alongside of its innate power, whereas the other is a woman who has learned the ways of the beast, when born from a monster in the form of a man. Sorry, I have to get my cat to leave my dog alone. Uh, but you could clearly see that they come from similar yet opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of what they represent. And as they go in for a final clash of their Kamehamehas, Goku from behind Goku once more, you can see the maw of the great ape shining in the palm of his hands, and his eyes seem to flash gold. Chi-Chi, a red aura surrounds her, and it seems almost as if horns take place on her head, as you can hear the stampede of what seems to be nothing but hundreds of oxes following their princess into battle. As she lets out a flaming Kamehameha, and he lets out a super Kamehameha, colored red, and they clash with each other, which Goku eventually wins. And this is the end of the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, with Son Goku being declared as the winner and Chi-Chi taking second place. They all have their dinner. Goku's congratulating everyone. He's completely impressed, and he's blown out of the water that Chi-Chi actually developed her magical abilities that far. She had never shown that in any of their earlier training at Urnai Baba's place, and can only guess that she intentionally kept it from him. Sadly, tragedy does strike. You might think that Krillin being so much stronger may stand a chance, but all it does is delay his suffering. Krillin sadly falls in battle against Tambourine when he goes to collect Goku's Power Ball. This is because of the fact that, as I mentioned, King Piccolo has sensed the budding powers of these martial artists and does not want to take any risks. So, he encouraged all of his children to grow in power, to train against one another and become more powerful than ever before. Even when Goku, because of this, Tambourine had a much higher power level. Instead of the 150 in canon, he himself had a power level of 195, even with Krillin. And while he did not kill him, he did paralyze him. And it doesn't seem as if they'd be able to heal him, at least not immediately. He ends up fleeing with the roster, and I believe it was the Dragon Ball. And with this, the King Piccolo saga is about to begin. My dog is getting needy. I should take him for a walk, and that should be the end of this part. A little longer than the previous ones. I don't know if I'll record another video later today. My voice is it's killing me a little, but we'll see. That should be it for today. See you all next time.